meetings to be very effective. So we have agendas. What are we going to talk about? Do you need to prepare for anything? So what's your role? What do you need to do? And most importantly, why are we meeting? You ever get an invite and you're like, I have no idea why I'm going to this meeting, but I was invited, so I better go? I get them all the time. So I really...
Purpose, right? Is that what you guys call it? Meeting purpose?
We call it meeting purpose. So I always start with the beginning, what's the agenda? Why are we here? What's the purpose? Any ground rules? And you can start these with your team and just keep moving on the ground rules. We just keep adding. It seems like every other month we have a couple new ground rules. But and when you're in the process, when you're in the meeting, you have to manage it. You will have dysfunctional people. The key is to nicely but very pointedly say, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Perhaps we could talk to other people that haven't had a chance to voice their opinion, because you will have people that will dominate. You will have people that will sidetrack your meeting, and that happens all the time, and just say, thank you very much for that thought, but we really need to get back to our purpose. So earlier I said, make sure you have your roles in front of you, especially early on. Print out your agenda so everybody sees it. It's in front of you, so you can always say, oh, here it is. Or if it's on the whiteboard, point to it. Say, oh, well, we're a little bit off topic here. Maybe we can get back to the agenda. And it really focuses people on what you're there for. And nobody wants to have another meeting because this meeting wasn't successful. So you can always say, we really want to get done here so I don't have to schedule another meeting. All of a sudden, everybody's really productive. Tools for, if you're using a tool, brainstorming, consensus, I have found out if you have 50 people in the room, there's 50 ways, not only to leave your lover, but 50 ways to brainstorm as well. Put down the rules. This is how we're going to brainstorm. We're going to go round robin, or everybody writes it down on a Post-it note. So tell them how you're going to do it. I shouldn't say tell them. Ask them, hey, is this okay if this is how we do brainstorming? Or is this okay how we do consensus building? And get everybody involved, engaged. But that way everybody knows, because not everybody knows how to use these tools, these facilitation tools. And then closure. Leave 5-10 minutes at the end of your meeting to summarize. This is what our decisions were. This is what we're going to do for our next step. Is everybody okay with that? And find out. Do you want to build consensus? Ask them questions. Anybody have any concerns with that? A lot of people will go back and say, well, I'll type up the minutes and get them out in a couple weeks. If you wrote them down, scan them into the copy machine, email them out, take a photo if it's a design up on the whiteboard. So there's a lot of shortcuts with our new technology. But if we do a lot of handwritten notes that we just copy them, scan them actually, and send them out. So they're there within usually 5 minutes after you get back to your desk. Tips and techniques. When to use a facilitation tool, I kind of covered that. Decide, prepare early. What tools do you need? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to gather a bunch of ideas, what tool do you want to use? What facilitation tool? And sometimes if the team's not familiar, bring written instructions. This is how we're going to do a straw man. This is how we're going to vote on all these topics. Especially if it's a new meeting, new people, and they're not familiar with your team, your dynamics, and the tools themselves. I do a lot of confirmation. Like, well, I heard you say this. Is that correct? Or is that okay if I capture this, your thought this way? Yeah, that's exactly what I said, Kelly. So I do a lot of confirmation. It engages people and lets them know, oh, she is listening to me. My thought does count. My ideas do count. So it also helps at the end of the meeting. You're like, okay, they've kind of been walking the same path. Everybody's on the same path. And you're going down that same vision. You're meeting that purpose, that meeting purpose. The last line is a quote from one of my team members. He said, to be a Scrum Master and a facilitator, you have to walk a narrow line between control and freedom. And that is so true. Because sometimes you want to control the process, because maybe the team's getting a little bit off track, but you don't want to give them total freedom where it's like, oh, let's take a 5-hour lunch, So it's in between, and it's not easy, but it's something that you learn over time.
We have a question over there.
Are you guys using the mountain gold cards at all to
We do. Yeah, the question is, what little tools do you use for Scrum? We don't use mountain gold, but what we use is the poker cards. We use Post-it notes. We use a lot of We use a lot of Post-it notes for brainstorming, for consensus building, for voting. We're trying to be low tech. We don't even have an Agile tool to keep track of our stories. We use MS Excel. It works for us. We don't need a big tool. Someday we might be, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But we try to keep it simple.
I just wanted to wrap up. We've got 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we have some time for questions. We focused on 2 specific areas for you, which is servant leadership and facilitation. I want you to know that I do a lot of assessments of project managers and give them feedback and coaching. One of the #1 ways your leadership skills are being judged is on how effectively you facilitate meetings. So if you didn't know that, I'm here to tell you that. When I do a lot of those 360 assessments, when I go and ask everybody else to rate the project manager for me or tell me how effective they are, they always tell me, you know, where I see them in action is in those meetings. And when they schedule a meeting and they come and they sit down, and the meeting all goes out of whack, and nobody keeps action items, nobody emails meeting notes, when nobody takes and tells people what to do next, no decisions have been communicated at all. When they don't know how to resolve conflict between team members, that's how I judge them, and guess what? I judge their leadership skills that way. So I just want you to know how critical it is for you to gain this skill. Your leadership is being judged by how effective you are as a facilitator. This is when you are in action. Another thing, if you are ever building teams, whether you're a project manager or an actual resource manager, you are taking teams from forming to storming, which is the fun phase, right? This is where all the action happens. This is all the stories that we get, the drama. And then we go to norming, and then we go to performing. You are doing that by facilitating. You are helping them get from one phase to another. #1, primarily by facilitating a lot of group discussions. 2, by one-on-one coaching. So if you don't know how to coach people, you better hurry up and start learning. And if you don't know how to facilitate, that's another. Think of yourself as a project manager, as a leader, not somebody who's going to be managing tasks. That's the new world in Agile. You are no longer Microsoft project, I've got my project plan down, I got to submit all these reports, and this is how I'm doing well. If all my reports look good, and all my tasks are broken down, that's not it. That will be 10% of what you do. 90% is being there with the team, empowering them and leading them, becoming a leader. So let's open it up for questions, you guys. We've only got about 4 more minutes left.